What is going on YouTube? It's your boys Collins. We are back again with another tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm actually going to be teaching you how to do this. Awesome. This is by far an easy tutorial. If you guys can honestly pay attention to every single step that I show you, I feel like you're gonna have the best video ever. So right here, I already opened up Adobe After Effects right now on my computer, and as you already know, you can see that I'm clearly standing in front of the camera and I'm doing whatever I'm doing. I'm moving around a little bit and, you know, doing all this other cool stuff, right? This is how I want you to film your video. All right, first and foremost, I want you to film this video on a tripod. All right, so as you guys can see, I have my camera placed on a tripod, and all I'm doing is basically moving in the scene. Now, what you want to do is you want to film, you know, doing your little acting, whatever you're trying to act, pretend as if you're invisible, all that other cool stuff. And then what you want to do next is, at some point in the video, right, you want to actually film a background, right? Film an empty plate. Okay, so we're going to be using this empty plate. So you see, again, I walk out of the frame and we have this empty, clear shot of the background. And that's exactly what we want. We want you to be in frame and we want you to be out of frame. And that's it. Okay, so you see, this is my setup. This is my composition. And this is exactly what I'm going to be working with. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and bring in the background itself. All right, so just give me a second. Let me go ahead and just grab that real quick. Okay, now I'm going to actually challenge you guys to make this video on your own. So I'm actually not going to provide this footage itself. Okay, so I just want you to know I'm not going to be providing this video itself. I want you guys to go ahead, film your own video and edit side by side with me, if that makes sense. Now, before we begin, I definitely want to say that there is a specific effect that I want you guys to actually grab. And this is from Red Giant, Chromatic Displacement. Chromatic Displacement is going to allow us to basically pull this effect off. I'm highly requesting that you guys actually download this, this plugin from Red Giant, because this is the plugin that's really going to make the magic work. If you don't have this plugin, it's going to be a little bit difficult because, again, this is an advanced tutorial. So I'm not going to be teaching you guys some basic low quality stuff. I'm teaching you some really good stuff. So I want you guys to have the best effects. So go ahead, download this plugin from Red Giant, and let's make it happen. Let me go ahead and bring the background in. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this background into this composition. And what I'm going to do is let me turn off these layers. You see this background? I'm going to right click this background, go to time and freeze frame, and then stretch this background all the way. So what's happened is we have basically frozen the background throughout this whole entire throughout our whole entire timeline, this whole entire composition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and rename this to BG. All right, so that's going to represent background. We're probably going to change the color. We're going to change the label color to brown. All right. Awesome. Let's turn off the sound on that layer, and let's go ahead and let's turn on our footage layer. Now, as we're looking through our footage, right, what's basically happening is, you know, my eyes are open, and then all of a sudden I close my eyes, and then the moment I close my eyes, the idea is I want to go invisible. Okay, so what's gonna happen is we're gonna go invisible, and then eventually, I'm basically gonna step back. So that's what's happening. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and save the project, right, by hitting Control S or Command S on your keyboard to save. And I want you to go ahead and save this project as invisible. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to move this time indicator a few frames over to the moment I close my eyes, like right here, right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this specific layer, the footage layer, and hit Control Shift D or Command Shift D if you're using a Mac to split the layer. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to rotoscope this layer. Now, remember, keep in mind, I did record my video on a 16 by 9 ratio, which is 920 by 1080 pixels. And again, I filmed this on 24 frames per second. Okay, so it's pretty much what I did. What I want you to do is go ahead and click on the roto brush tool, right? And make sure you click on this specific layer. I want you to go ahead and right click, rename this layer to roto. All right. Rename that and maybe change the color to yellow so we know the difference. So click on this layer, right? Make sure the roto brush tool is selected and double click this layer. It's going to open up a new sort of like layer in the preview tab. And what I want you to do is go ahead and click on the footage and then make sure you come over here and select draw sort of like a mask around me or you. Now, remember, the best way to achieve this effect is when you're filming, make sure there's a lot of light. Okay, you see there's a lot of light in my face and there's a little bit of light in the background so that the computer does not have a hard time, completely rotoscoping you out of the scene. Now, if you're using a green screen, it's a bit different, all right? But since I did not film this on the green screen, we have to go with this rotoscoping route. Okay, so let's hit Control S to save. And what I want you to do is go ahead and press play. Now, as far as for me, my computer is very smart, so my computer should be able to completely manually track my subject as he moves backwards. And we're just basically going to fix a few couple of areas as well too. Now, if we replay this, you should see that my subject has been completely perfectly motion tracked, or in other words, rotoscoped. So what we're going to do is we're going to move right around here to the part where, we get a little bit of space in between my arm, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Control. Actually, yeah, Control. And then I'm just going to click and hold, right click and hold, and then just drag it down a little bit to make the brush size smaller or larger. And then what I'm going to do is hold Alt or Option if you're using a Mac, and then deselect this area. Move to the next frame, and then you should see that it should completely stick with it. And then we're going to come all the way over here where this arm starts to open, and you can clearly see that I'm perfectly rotoscoped. The whole idea is we don't want to add this background to our subject. We're only highlighting our subject from the scene. So hit Control S to save your current progress. Now, once you've done that, right, that's pretty much it. What we're going to do is we're going to come back into the composition layer, and you can clearly see our subject has been perfectly rotoscoped. So if we turn off this background, this is what it looks like. You see? That looks really good. Now here's what we're going to do. Let's turn the background back on, and let's go ahead and let's feather this out just a bit, maybe bring it up to like 20 pixels. And the shift edge, let's reduce the shift edge to maybe like -10. This will allow us to remove as much detail from the edges as much as possible so that it looks really good. For some reason you can still see the background right here, but like I said, it's okay. This is not a we don't want it to be completely all around perfect. We just need it to be good enough, if that makes sense. So you can play around with the settings over here, maybe reduce the contrast. Matter of fact, reduce the contrast. Let me hit Control Z. I'm gonna leave the contrast exactly where it is. Maybe the shift edge, we can reduce it just a bit more to reduce the amount of detail that's over here. It's perfect. Let's see. You know what? I think maybe there might have been a mistake right here. You see, you can clearly see the background through my armpits. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on the roto brush tool, double click it again, and come back into this composition. Zoom in, hold space on my keyboard and click to drag, and then hold Control and then click down to reduce the brush size. Hold Alt or Option and deselect this area. Move to the next frame. Make sure those areas are selected. Perfect, perfect, perfect. That's exactly what we want. Awesome, awesome. Now we're going to repeat the same process on this side because clearly we're getting the same thing over here. So let's make sure it's repetitive. Perfect. Because we want to remove as much detail as much as possible from the shot, if that makes sense. There we go. That's much better. And hit Control S to save. See, now once you've done that, right, this is pretty much the hard part. What you can do is you can actually preview this video just in case if your computer's slow. You can like render this, and then we're gonna bring back this video back into this composition. Let me explain. What I want you to do is press B on your keyboard, B for bread, and then make sure this whole area is selected. And hold on, what's going on? I think towards the end we get a little bit of some information down here. Hold on, I need to fix that before we do anything else. Give me a second, guys. Let me go ahead and fix all my issues right now. This is perfect. We're just gonna leave it like this. What I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and make sure this whole area is selected, the area where your subject has been perfectly, rotoscoped. Right now, of course, this is not a fully 100% perfect rotoscope. I know this thing looks terrible, but trust me, it's better than, yeah, it's good. Let's just keep it like that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and click on File. We're gonna come all the way down to Export, Add to Render Queue. And what I want you to do is go ahead and click on H2.264. Click on this, click on that, and then go ahead and change this to QuickTime. Click on RGB and change this to RGB plus alpha, because what we're doing is we're only rendering our guy, not the background. So we're gonna have a completely clear background. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on footage, and then we're probably gonna rename this to roto, and then press enter, and then press render. Now, once you've rendered it, right, you should be able to have the ability to bring it back into our composition. And the reason why I had you guys render it is because of the fact that, you know, sometimes when you're trying to add effects, the computer starts to slow down, and, you know, we don't want that. You feel me? Like, we don't want that. So just go ahead and turn off the layer, hit Control S to save, come back to the project panel, double click this space. And what I want you to do is go ahead and click on roto, click on import, and then drag in the roto layer above the other roto layer, and just click on this roto layer and just hide it, right? Hide it. If you don't see that, just click on toggle switches to mode, and you should be able to see it. Hide it. Come up here, press hide all layers. Excellent. Hit Control S to save. Now, once you've done that, here's what's happening. We're going to turn the background back on. And if you notice in the beginning, right, the background itself is quite a little bit blurry. But the moment he goes invisible, we start to see the background a bit more clear. And so this is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to click on this roto layer, and we're going to turn it off. Let's change the color right back to yellow. All right, so it matches the other one. And then hit Control S to save. And then what I want you to do is go ahead and right click this space, click on new, click on adjustment layer. And then what I want you to do is press enter on this layer and rename this to Chromatic Displacement. So just rename it to CD for Chromatic Displacement. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this end piece and just bring it over here. And we're going to go ahead and click on the Chromatic Displacement plugin from Red Giant and drag that into this specific layer. Once we've done that, what I want you to do next is I want you to go ahead and change the source. Well, actually, first change this specific area to change the layer from this to roto mov.mov. That's the one we just rendered. Click on source and change it to effects and masks. Perfect. Now you see the displacement amount? Crank the displacement amount. And then that's when you start to see the whole invisibility effect. See how cool that is? So you can crank it all the way down, you know, both ways, whether left or right, it doesn't really matter. The effect is still going to look the same. So for me, I'm going to crank it all the way to the right and maybe change it to, let's just say 135. Right? Now, you notice there's still a little bit of some detail in our layer, right? You can still see some detail. So you can play around with a soften displacement layer. So you can soften it a little bit if you want to make it much more softer. If you want to make it more glossy like this, where we don't find too much detail, but we only see your outline, you can leave it like this, depending on the effect that you're trying to achieve. Now, if you want to make this appear to have more detail and you can still see a bit of your skin and the details, you know, you can go ahead and probably leave it at 3, you know, or 5. For me, I like to leave it at 5. It's natural settings because those are the best settings. Perfect. Now, where do we transition, right? How do we get that transition effect where we transition from this to this? Let me show you exactly what we're going to do. We're going to hit Control S to save the current progress. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on this specific roto layer and hit Control D to duplicate it. And we're going to go ahead and crop this out over here, somewhere around here. We're going to rename this to, just rename this to head. And I want you to go ahead and turn it on. And what's happening is we're going to press T on the keyboard on opacity and set a keyframe on opacity. And then move this keyframe about 2 frames, 3 frames to the left and reduce this down to 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come all the way back to CD and press T on the keyboard and set a keyframe on opacity. And then drag this all the way over to the right. And then reduce this to 0. So, matter of fact, I made a mistake. Change this keyframe to 100. And change this one right here to 0. And then close both of those layers. So it should look something like this. So we get that smooth transition. But there's a problem. Hit Control S to save. The problem is the background immediately loses its blur. And we don't want that. We want this to be a smooth transition. And so what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and right click this same layer, press new, and come all the way to adjustment layer. So just right click this area right here, right click, new, adjustment layer. And hit Control Shift D to split the layer and delete that part. So you should only have this part. And we're going to press enter and rename this to blur. And then drag this blur layer right here. Or actually right around here. Right there. And maybe change the color of the blur to something like red, so we know it's blur. And then come into the Effects and Presets tab and search up Fast Box Blur and drag Fast Box Blur into this layer. And then go ahead and crank the properties to somewhere around like 5. It should match, right, this background. Right, if you move this back, you notice how the blur is still a little bit blurry, and then you come over here, it's still a little bit blurry. So maybe reduce this to maybe instead of 5, maybe reduce it to 4. It's perfect. And then maybe let's do this. Let's add a brightness and contrast. Search up brightness and contrast in this area. Spell brightness wrong. I need to go back to school. Brightness and contrast. Drag brightness and contrast into this specific layer. And here's what we're gonna do. We want to match the same lighting. So let's reduce the brightness of this specific layer, something like this. All right, so if we come back here, it should be a faint, right? Faint difference. Hit Control S to save. Now come over here to blur and set a keyframe by pressing T. Press T on the keyboard while clicking on blur and set a keyframe on opacity. Move this all the way down and reduce this to 0. So it should look something like this. So you notice how everything works together. Nice. So remember, hit Control S to save. You can play around with the chromatic displacement layer, right? Now you can play around with the displacement spread. You know what I'm saying? You can change the look. Like, you can do so much to it. Like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You notice this has no chromatic look to it. There's no aberration to it. So, you know, you can play around with the settings to get the look that you're looking for. And so for me, the desired look is this look. So as you can see, we have completed this effect. I mean, it's not hard. It's not difficult. It's actually easy to do this kind of stuff. Now, of course, feel free to play around, you know, with the settings and play around with the chromatic displacement settings up here and to get the look that you're looking for, okay? Now, let's add some sound effects, right? So the sound effects that I actually handpicked, these are some of my invisibility sound effects that I did provide in the past or something like that. Matter of fact, let me change this to 2. Give me a second. What I'll do is I'll actually provide a link to download these sound effects down below. So yeah, you can feel free to download the sound effects and just apply it to your footage. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add this sound effect, right? This is the sci-fi sound effect number 1. And I'm going to double click L and let's see where we are. So we're going to place that somewhere around here and press play. So that's going to be our transition sound. All right, so let's press L on the keyboard and then reduce the audio levels to maybe like -9. Nice. Hit Control S to save your current progress. Now we're going to go ahead and click on the sci-fi sound effects number 2 and drag that over here. And we're going to double click L. And then maybe we're going to bring this right around here, offset this a little bit to the left. And we're going to probably press L again, lower down the volume. And then maybe right click it, go to time stretch, and maybe stretch this to maybe like 120. And then press OK and then press play. Actually, you know what? Let's bring this a little bit to the left. And then what we're going to do is at the end, we're going to apply this invisibility sound effect right around here. And then double click L and then bring this here. So maybe offset this a little bit to the right. So the part. So the whole idea is you want the sound itself to match your movements and at the exact same time. It just needs to make sense, all right? So that's one thing I love about VFX is that when it comes to VFX, you're not only just paying attention to what you're seeing, but also what you're hearing. So it's very important to make sure that the sound and the visuals really match. By doing so, you have a really great I don't even know how to say it. I don't even know what I'm saying. Just make sure you match them together, if that makes sense. And then of course hit Control S to save. And then what we can even do is, we don't even have to pre-compose everything, right? What we're gonna do next is we're gonna right click the same space, go to new adjustment layer, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna create another adjustment layer. And in this specific adjustment layer, we're gonna add some small camera shake. So just come all the way over here, type in motion tile. Okay, do me a favor, type in motion tile and bring motion tile into this specific layer. Click on this specific layer and rename this to camera shake. So just rename it to CS for camera shake. And then come back over here, right? And then go ahead and click on mirror edges. Change the output height to 150 and the output width also to 150. If you guys watch all my tutorials, I always add camera shake to almost every video that I do. So by now you should already know how to do some really cool camera shake effects on After Effects. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come all the way over here and we're gonna search up wiggle. All right, so wiggle position, click on wiggle position and drag that into this specific composition. And what I want you to do is just crop this out just a little bit. And what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and crank up the speed just a tad, maybe, and reduce the wiggle amount to maybe 604. And then enable motion blur down here. If you don't see it, click on toggle switches and mode and then press play. There's too much wiggle, right? So we're gonna just have the wiggle start right around here, maybe like a frame before this happens, and then just bring it over here, maybe something like this right here. So we get a little bit of some wiggle, you know. Excellent. Now of course feel free to add some color grade and some noise to this specific video to enhance the look. And then after you put everything together, just come all the way down to file, export, add to render queue, and then go ahead and just press render, and it should basically save into your folder. And that's basically how you do this effect. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you liked it. Just definitely subscribe to my channel, and yeah, check out some of the courses that I've already put out there. In the future, we're definitely going to be doing some really good stuff. So I have a lot of plans for this VFX stuff. I just need time. Time is the thing that I need. So pray for me so I can get more time. All right, man. Appreciate you guys, and thank you so much for watching this video. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.